their accents and silly hats. Forfeiture generally works is that if the police believe they have a preponderance of the evidence that suggests your property was or could be used in a crime, they confiscate it. And it gets even weirder.
Folks are unfamiliar with the idea of civil forfeiture, which is actually a case brought directly against a piece of property where you don't need to be proven guilty of a crime for your goods to be taken away.
Exactly. You don't need to be charged with a crime because it's not you that's on trial, it's your stuff. That's why these cases have historically had eye-catching names, such as an all-this appeal, United States versus 8,800 United States versus an article consisting of 50,000 cardboard boxes, more or less, each containing United States versus approximately 64,600 shark fins. Court case. And do you see those shark fins in the room right now? Yes! This is pointed. And it's also worth noting that your possessions generally have fewer protections under the law than you do. Under civil forfeiture laws, your property is guilty until you prove it innocent. To be fair, civil forfeiture laws have had some positive consequences. Crippled powerful drug trafficking organisations, wanted criminals, and returned billions of dollars to victims. The problem is that many police departments are allowed to keep most or all of the money they seize, and knowing that starts to make you wonder about the motivations of these kinds of questions. Any language. In fact, let's all just pause for a moment to enjoy that sentence, because every single word of it is funny. First, tenny, pronounced incorrectly. Mucho, one of the few words he knows in Spanish. Mucho, repeated word. De Niro, a famed actor. In, a rapid shift to English. Sue, rapid shift back to Spanish. Trucky trailer. Now, it's magnificent. That is magnificent. It's a work of art. Now this happened in Tennessee, a state where local law enforcement authorities are allowed to keep as much as 100% of the proceeds from civil forfeitures. A local news investigation found multiple troubling cases of people having money seized, such as George Reeby, who had $20,000 seized after he was stopped for speeding. The police officer argued it was drug money, despite the fact that Reeby had a pretty good explanation.
I told them I had active bids on eBay that I was trying to buy a vehicle, and they just didn't want to hear it.
In fact, Reeby had proof on his computer, but the Monterey officer drew up a damning affidavit citing his own training that common people do not carry this much U.S. currency.
And did he tell you that he was trying to buy a car?
He did.
But you did not include that in your report.
If it's not in there, I didn't put it in there.
So why would you leave that out?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? I expect a better answer from a police officer than a 4-year-old who just spilled grape juice on the couch. What happened to your drink? I don't know. If it's not in my glass, it's not in my glass. I don't know. I don't know. And look, it's not always just a roadside stop. In 2008, police raided the Contemporary Art Institute of Detroit. but that alcohol was sufficient to seize a car, which means any teenager on video of that actually right, and you can see the police burst in, arrest people with the disco shakedown in human history. They each had to pay $900 to get their cars out of the impound, with the exception of the one person whose car was actually stolen from the lots which it had been towed. Which seems like the sort of thing the police should be investigating if they weren't too busy raiding art gallery folk nights. And at this point, you may be thinking, well, sure, the police department are getting a lot of money from seizing stuff. We're not sure there are limitations on how they can spend it. Well, allow me to take you to a 2012 Columbia, Missouri Citizen Police Review Board hearing.
Alright. So, civil forfeiture. You have, forfeiture, yeah.
Forfeiture, something to which the right is lost by the commission of a crime or fault or the losing of something by way of a penalty. Ridgway versus City of Akron, Ohio, APP.42, whatever. And then it goes into the different things of punishment. Annexed by law to some illegal act or negligence in the owner of the land. Tenement or hereditament, whereby he loses all interest therein. That's number one. Number two, the loss of land by a tenant to his lord as the consequence of some breach of fidelity. That's number two. Number three, the loss of lands and goods to the state as a consequence of a crime. Number four, the loss of goods or chattels as a punishment for some crime or misdemeanor in the party forfeiting and as a compensation for the offense and injury committed against him to whom they are forfeited. 5, the loss of office by abuser, non-user, or refusal to exercise it. 6, the loss of a corporate franchise or charter in consequence of some illegal act or of malfeasance or non-feasance. 7, the loss of the right to life as the consequence of the commission of crime to which the law has a fixed capital penalty. 8, the incurring a liability to pay a definite sum of money as a consequence of violating the provisions of some statute or refusal to comply with some requirements of law. Number 9, a thing or a sum of money forfeited, something imposed as a punishment for an offense or delinquency. The word in this sense is frequently associated with the word penalty. Number 10, in mining law, the loss of a mining claim held by location on the public domain, and in parentheses, unpatented.
Right before forfeiture, is forfeiture?
Yep.
What's forfeit?
To lose the right to, by some error, fault, offense, or crime, or to subject as property to forfeiture or confiscation. To lose the right to, by some error, fault, offense, or crime, or to subject as property to forfeiture or confiscation.
Okay, so when Noble Drew Ali told the Moors that they should proclaim their nationality, learn the truth about their nationality and birthrights, he was reversing forfeiture. He was letting the individuals who forfeited make a reclamation of what they forfeited on. Because when we go into, based on the little video, and then you start reading articles about civil forfeiture and the giving up of rights or losing rights, most of the time it's not because of the violator. It's because the individual consents to something that they shouldn't be consenting to, right? So with, for example, they're talking about civil forfeiture, and they have the meeting, the council meeting or whatever like that, and he's talking about, well, actually there's no real limitations on forfeiture. We could take whatever we want. when we want. Why is that? Because majority of time, the things that are being claimed by the so-called law enforcement are things that individuals themselves took and registered with somebody else, which gives these so-called mercenaries jurisdiction to go claim stuff after, because they smelt weed. So we're going to take your car. Because the individual who has the vehicle registered it or consented to somebody else having jurisdiction over this piece of property, not just the owner. So when you have two people that are making a claim on a property, right, the loser is going to be the one who forfeits automatically. But the forfeit isn't happening in the court. The forfeit happened when you registered the thing. And then we go into this jurisdiction called a court that we think is a court, but it's not really a court. They're just administrative people that set up a jurisdiction and say, okay, anybody who has issues that say this on it, then they're going to come here. And then when you go to that place, you realize that the individuals who are heading that so-called jurisdiction of a court are the same people who came and took your stuff. It's not a separate branch of whatever. It's the exact same branch that took your stuff. They just have on a different jacket, and they're claiming that they're something else now when they're the same thing that took your stuff.
And then as well, what makes it layered to that is that the people there who, let's say, even if they are saying it's a court, those people that are supposed to be helping you, they're hired by the people who've taken your stuff. They belong to the group that's taking your stuff, right? The people who are against you belong to that group, right? So ultimately, it's been co-opted from top to bottom.
Right.
So you couldn't even go to the very court that you're talking about to
go
get
get something.
And so I was thinking that you should read Reclaim. Reclaim too.
So in 2005, right? I wasn't literally living where I was living like a life of crime. Not something I'm proud of, but I don't do it to this day, right? So I was arrested for like selling drugs and stuff like that, right? And when I got arrested, they never found the drugs on me. They found it like around my surroundings.
Yeah.
So the money that I had on me, they seized it and they said it was proceeds to crime. I had over like say $100 or so.
Yeah. Right.
They said it was proceeds to crime, right?
Do you remember whether they asked you if you had money on you and how much?
They didn't ask me if I had money on me. Because once they saw the drugs, they pulled out their guns and arrested me, took me down hard, right?
Yeah.
But I ended up beating that case after serving about 5-6 months in incarceration.
Yeah.
And after I beat that case, the day I was released, I asked them if I could get my money back.
Yeah.
And they said no, it was proceeds to crime. And everything, like I had my own place to live and everything like that, right? But when I went back to my place to live and tried to get back all my belongings and stuff, it was all gone.
Right.
Everything had disappeared. Yeah. I tried to ask my family members, I asked my friends, like, what happened, while I was incarcerated?
Yeah.
Like, what went on while I was gone, right? And nobody had no explanation of, like, where my stuff went, where my belongings went, or anything. So is that civil fortitude?
Yeah, forfeiture.
Forfeiture, sorry.
Civil forfeiture.
Civil forfeiture.
Well, I think it goes even beyond civil forfeiture, right? Well, I mean,
Well,
I mean, to me, there would be kidnapping. There would be.
There's other things.
That's what some of the other inmates were telling me, that them taking me off the streets without letting anybody in my family know or anything like that. Because like I didn't get a phone call until like the week after, right? Because I ended up getting in problems inside the jail, right?
Yeah.
But
which is part of the whole
system that
in order to keep you in there longer so they can claim the stuff.
Right. But like what I'm trying to get at is like they never gave me a chance to actually like claim anything or like get anything back from it. It's like I had to start from scratch, start all over again.
And then that's because the place that you were renting, that's somebody had that place registered, whether it's apartment, house, or whatever. The city of has some type of tie to that thing, right?
Well, and more than that too, probably the guy who you're renting from is probably a European.
No, it was
Your
an
brother?
Indian man still.
Well, but whether Indian man or not, well, he's saying Indian depending on where he was.
But like,
he's still connected
For,
with.
for me, it was because it was a basement apartment, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
me and my girlfriend were living downstairs, and then above us were some white people who
Right.
lived up there, right? So like, I guess when I was incarcerated, like I told my girlfriend to get my stuff out and all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? But like
It was hard
during
for
that
her. Yeah, go on.
during that process, it's like she didn't want me to come out and know that like I could get back right into the same thing that I was doing before.
Right.
She wanted me to change, right?
Right.
But I wasn't ready to change my lifestyle. So like basically she
Let things happen.
let things happen to me and let things happen to my stuff,
Right.
which I wasn't able to get back, and I wasn't able to get back with her.
Right.
I wasn't able to get back any of my belongings or
Right.
anything like that, right? So basically, what I'm trying to say with the civil forfeiture, is it something where like once you're off the basically off the surface of the earth, like basically you're not on the streets anymore, they have the right to take anything that you have out there.
No.
They don't have the right, but they do it because we consent to giving them jurisdiction over us by us having their name, by us, you know.
But I mean, like I had my own vehicle, I had my own insurance, I had my own driver's
Yeah,
license,
that's
like I
the
had
thing.
all those things,
But
right?
it's not that was your own.
So
Because
basically,
you
it belonged to
because
somebody
you
else.
registered,
The
yeah,
only
you-
thing that belonged to me was
It's
myself.
you, yeah. and that didn't really belong to you really because
Because
they picked that up.
Yeah, then
and-
they put it
and
somewhere
housed
else.
it. Yeah.
What really belonged to you was your spirit and your mind, which they could never break.
Which they could never take away.
Right.
Which is why you're still here, you know, which
And
why
that's
you
not,
made
and,
the
that, and
circle.
now when you think about it, when you look back, you think to yourself, see, I was watching one of those things Taj was saying, there are no consequences.
Mhm.
Nothing ever happened by accident. All that shit that probably happened led you to get here today.
Right.
Even though it was a difficult path, that's why you're here. You could still be out there
Doing whatever.
But you're here.
When you came up, just like other people, you know, revolving door or whatever.
And probably like me, as I said, I was inside too. When I came out, I still continued that. It didn't take me going in there to get out of it. It was after that, after thinking, after realizing, after watching, after understanding that the whole system is against you. So ultimately, you can be that warrior and try and fight. And you have to have the forethought to go, okay, I'm going to get into this just to make this amount of money to get out. Because if you keep operating on that level, they ultimately will always have a way of grabbing you. And even when you're not doing that, let's say slinging drugs, they can still just grab you. But then that's where your karmic debt comes into it too, where you're like, okay, if I'm doing bad, ultimately somewhere in there your own consciousness says, okay, well that's probably not the right thing to do, though they're doing it too. You walk into any store and you're buying cigarettes, which is a drug, which is killing people. So they've got karmic debt too. But the question is, you can then say they're assholes, so I'm going to be an asshole, but you have to, what I realize is I have to be higher than them. Like I have to take a higher road than them. If not,
acknowledging that we were in error, registering our stuff in the first place. That's why it got stolen. It didn't get stolen because they were vigilantes trying to take our stuff.
what happened was, you see, what I realized is my conveyance out here in my car has a registration to the government, which means that ultimately they can take that from me. Because I've registered it to them. They let you use it because you're buying gas, because you're going there and paying taxes, and because if I get effed up and then they effed up every one of us, there's going to be civil unrest.
Right.
They're going to have people in the streets looking to kill them. So they just keep everyone okay. Let's just take out of every $100. I realize out of every $100, they're taking 30 of it.
30 and, you
They're
know.
taking 30 of it. Out of every $100, they're taking 30 of it. Every time you go to work and you get your little $1,000 check, they're taking $300. That's how they work it, right?
To keep, you know, things kind of
in peace.
Yeah.
Because you know that once, if they're coming
people
into your house,
yeah, because if we look at, like, if people start realizing that, you know, civil forfeiture is what they're doing. Not because you're a criminal, they take your stuff. They take your stuff because you put it in their jurisdiction. People would immediately stop putting their stuff in their jurisdiction.
and let's be honest too, this is what I realize now. See, civil forfeiture, when you talk about those other countries where you're like in Colombia or somewhere, you're just walking down the street and a man comes and grabs you, policeman, and just takes things out of your pocket. Those are countries that maybe didn't have as much sort of disposable wealth, so to speak. Here now, because we're tightening stuff up, now they're having to start to enact that same type of behavior
Right.
that they were doing in those other countries, because we're smartening up. We're not just criminals now. They're not making as much money in the courts anymore. People are smartening up, staying out of jail, so they're not making money. So now they got to go to the people in the
In
streets.
the streets now
And
to
now
go
we got to start
to make ends meet.
They're called highwaymen. It would be like me
Yeah.
just walking out there and just walking along and seeing you two there and just coming up and going, right? But now we've got a law. Oh, you're wearing black shoes? Well, there's a statute that says you can't wear black shoes, right? You're not wearing a seatbelt? Whatever, right? They're just
Yeah.
robbers. They're
Oh, yeah.
plainly,
Check
that's
out-
why you have to start looking at it that way. You can't. I mean, you can be a man like that and just go in a blaze, but what it is about raising all of our consciousness and our children's consciousness is that once that changes, then the ethers change, then they have to change. That's what's going on right now. The change is happening as we see. It's going on. That's why you guys are here too.
Right.
One thing I noticed, especially with like the criminal court system, is that now pretty much we're going after all the students now.
That's right.
You go to the criminal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's all students.
For real.
And it's pretty much over like city stuff. I mean, like some stuff is probably.
Yeah, but that's right. That's
But
right.
majority of it is,
Yeah.
is frivolous. Things that they can just
But,
dismiss.
Back in the day, we used to just work it out.
Right,
I just get a basis and
right.
I mean, remember this too. I mean, you're probably old enough to remember this. It used to be weed. Remember, it used to be weed. Everyone was up in there for a couple grams of weed,
Yeah,
joint
yeah,
here, joint
yeah,
there,
yeah,
bottle
yeah.
here, bottle there. Just bullshit.
Yeah, yeah.
Just pure bullshit. That if you just let, in other countries, man would be allowed to smoke a joint on the street. Man would be allowed to have a beer.
Yeah.
That's what the courts were filled with, just guys on a Friday night who were a little too drunk.
Yeah.
Right? They've had to start changing it because things are changing, because now we're getting smart. Right? But a lot of that drinking and smoking was done because we were out of whack to begin with, because unfortunately the system was screwed against us. We went to school with the same man, we were just as smart as this next European. He was off making 60 grand a year. Meanwhile, I was working at McDonald's
Yeah.
for $8 an hour, living in a basement apartment with nothing. Didn't realize what was going on. Didn't really realize.
Right. And our issue is realizing late. You know that now we realize that it's civil forfeiture, that these guys were doing, stealing people's property for the past, house that was supposed to be handed down or whatever church got. That's civil forfeiture.
Right.
The bank took back the house because, you didn't pay something or whatever. Civil forfeiture.
I just want to read reclaim here so
Yeah.
we can understand. To claim or demand back, to ask for the return or restoration of a thing, to insist upon one's right to recover that which was one's own, but was parted with conditionally or mistakenly, as to reclaim goods which were obtained from one under false pretense. So that's exactly what is going on. Reclamation. We're getting our stuff back, but the first thing we're getting back is ourselves.
It's ourselves.
Once that starts, everything falls from there, right? That's what it is, because that's what I realized, how layered it is. Because, yes, you can reclaim your car, but if you don't have yourself, then they're going to find some other angle.
Some way of
Right?
getting stuff back.
Reclaiming back the right that if I work in Mississauga, back in the day, I used to get on a horse, right? They didn't license the horse, but they had to find a way to license that thing so that they could control you. So, and then gas. You think about gas, which was $1.32 up to just a week ago. Now it's $1.19.
Yeah.
And every time there's some little long weekend, they put the gas price up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just ways of continuing just to suck.
Just
that
to suck,
energy.
just to
Energy.
skim off the top. Because they don't need to, have the 500 buckets. Just skim off the top. Skim off the top.
And you know what it likens it to? I realize it's cream.
Yeah.
You know when milk and cream?
Right.
Cream's on the top, right?
Right.
So what they're doing is just taking the cream
Just
off.
skimming off the top.
Just taking the cream off.
And they'll be able to survive
Well-
skimming off the top because they're the minority. They don't need that much stuff.
Well, not only that, they've got such a huge majority of people that are the minority
Right.
on the opposite end, right?
Yeah.
They've got 1,000 people feeding 10.
Yeah.
So they only need to take one little drop from
Right,
everyone.
from everybody,
Right.
in order to make up their 10. Because, majority of our people, they just give the stuff up. They're not arguing, fighting or whatever. They just give it up. They don't even question nothing.
But this is where, that's why I say it gets even more layered. Let's say something happens when you get caught or something, right? You then go to this place where some man like him is supposed to, as the judge, is supposed to make a decision. Well, he's, first of all, part of them to begin with.
Right.
Second of all, they tell you you've got to hire someone, let's say like me as the lawyer, to speak for you.
That's part of that.
That's part of the game too. So now you have to pay, so they took whatever they took. And then for you to, let's say, keep a good record.
Yeah.
So let's say that the record, which is supposed to say that you're a good upstanding guy, you then have to pay me another $100 to fight for the thing that might have been $50
Right.
just to keep the good name, so that when you go for a job from them, they look at your record's clean, because if your record's dirty, then you don't get, you see how
Right.
everything is, and then what the problem is they're profiling you.
On top of all that,
It's just
right,
you, us
yeah.
that they're after. It
They're
would be
not
fine
after
if it was everyone.
Chinese people stuff, because you don't hear them complaining about their stuff got stolen and whatever like that, right? You know,
Well, more
people
importantly,
from
too,
other
more
nations, they don't have the issue of, you know, getting stopped, check their car, blah blah blah. Most times, showing their license or your tail lights out or blah blah whatever, and then they send them on their way. It's not.
But no, but let's, because this is where I say it's even more layered. I don't know why this is coming to me. Think about it. Chinaman lives in Chinatown. He usually stays within his own community.
That too.
They don't mess with that community, because that community moves in force. We have that little Eglinton thing up here. That's about it. That one little strip. That's supposed to represent us. You can't go there for nothing. You can walk down Chinatown here at Spadina and Thing. You can walk down Chinatown at Broadview and Thing. That's their area. That's where they know how to keep together and work together. We have lost that. I'll walk by you guys in the street, and we might give each other a nod. Sometimes I try and give a man a nod. He looks like he wants to kill me, and I'm like, okay, I shouldn't nod at that guy. You know, maybe, I think to myself, I'm like, there must be someone who looks like me who he's mad at. That's a lot of the times what I think. So when I see the next guy, I sort of, no, this is true. You know, this is true stuff, right? And this is our own people.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll hail, you know, you get even, unfortunately, the Rastafarians, a lot of times because they're on that, at least on that other level where it's sort of, it's about the principles that you're on. The principles of, I was thinking about this today, if the principle is about greed, and you're about spirituality, then you're not going to succeed in the principle of
the greedy jurisdiction, yeah.
Right? So if greed is about money and everything, but it's really about love, then I'm not going to do well in greed. But if everything's about greed, and they're good at greed, then they're going to do well. But greed is about killing and naming and taking. So you're screwed. So either you have to join them, which then puts you in a spiritual lower spot, or you've got to walk the higher path. Right. But then you're not with the Mercedes, you're not with the big car, you're not with those things, right? And then you have the media, which is telling you these are all the things you need, right? So we're fighting. It's psychic attacks on us daily, hourly,
right,
minutely, right? Anyways, go.
Articles, civil forfeiture, a higher form of commercial law. Stephen L. Schwartz, SCHWARCZ, and Alan E. Rothman, ROTHMAN. Introduction. We continue to be enormously troubled by the government's increasingly and virtually unchecked use of the civil forfeiture statutes and the disregard for due process that is buried in those statutes. So they're just talking about civil forfeiture statutes, right? Keep in mind that when they talk about civil forfeiture statute, it's not that the civil forfeiture statute is creating the disregard for due process. It's the fact that it's a statute that's creating the fraudulent jurisdiction. Not the civil forfeiture, but the fact that it's a statute, right? Because under the Constitution, civil forfeiture can't take place under the Constitution. Because under the Constitution, everybody has a right to life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness, and all the other stuff that you have a right to. But if you abandon the Constitution, and you want to say that, oh yeah, you know, Canada Constitution Act is the law, not United States of America Constitution, then you fall under the jurisdiction of the statutes, because we're voiding the supreme law for subordinate law. This is why Noble Drew Ali never enforced statutes. And when he did enforce statute, it was based on the jurisdiction of the Moorish Science Temple of America and Heard's revised statute. And that's the only statute reference that Noble Drew Ali ever brought up with regard to the Moors. He never brought up any other statutes except that, right? And that's dealing with, you know, the corporate jurisdiction and the fact that if there is a corporate jurisdiction, there are certain things that are able to be done in a corporate jurisdiction under a religious umbrella, right? Which is why there's a reference to a statute. But other than that, Noble Drew Ali always told the Moors that it's all about constitutional enforcement for the protection of rights, right? Not statutes, right? In May 1992, the federal government commenced the third largest federal civil forfeiture action in United States history against more than 400 million of assets of John McNamara, a powerful New York real estate holder, car dealer, philanthropist, and leading Republican Party contributor. This forfeiture proceeding, initiated pursuant to the civil forfeiture provisions of the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, has had an enormous impact not only on McNamara, but also on innocent, unsecured, and undersecured creditors, including major financial and banking institutions. Right, so the references that they mentioned. First reference, 1, United States versus all assets of Statewide Auto Parts Incorporated. Right? Same thing they were talking about. That when they're gonna initiate a civil forfeiture action, it's the so-called government versus the chair. Not the owner of the chair, or not the guy who bought the chair. And if the so-called government's going against the chair, the government wins every time. Because the chair can't talk for itself. Assets can't talk for themselves. And the people who own the assets, more than likely, they're not even in the jurisdiction when this is taking place. And if they are in the jurisdiction, they're mannequins. Because they hired some guy who said, oh yeah, you know, I'll help you defend your stuff or whatever, when he's taking the position of, you know, not making the correct argument to help their boy steal the stuff, and then, you know, later behind back doors they get their little cut.
Yeah, I realize this with the courts too, and I've had my issues with, my mom used to be a lawyer, and I had some problem with the thing, so she didn't want to come there, so she got one of her lawyer friends to come do it. I realized that, I talked to my lawyer, he said, oh, I'm going to go talk to the other lawyer. I thought to myself, this is really strange. How come my lawyer, but this happens, it's not strange, it happens every single time.
Yeah.
The defense lawyer goes to talk to the prosecution lawyer, and they will definitely most of the time talk to the judge. So it's those three guys making a decision on what's happening to you. That to me, I realized was something screwed up, but that supposedly was him trying to see what the prosecution wanted. Let's see what the prosecution wants, and I'm going to, but really what you now realize is them behind doors, okay, well, a defense lawyer will go, you know, he's a good boy, whatever, let's just give him $1,000, let's give him $1,000. The prosecution's going, let's give him $2,000. The judge says, I'll settle on 12.
Yeah.
And that's how, and then your defense lawyer comes back and goes, listen, you know what, they want $2,000, but I was able to talk them down to 12.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, thank you.
Oh, that's the deal.
And then so you give them the 12, you give them the 12, and then you give your lawyer 8 as well.
Right.
So you're cooked from the very beginning.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, you're cooked because he's not on your side. He's about them. And you ultimately, if you've done something wrong, you're like, you know, I did this wrong thing. He's keeping me out of jail. It's only 2 years less a day to be served in the community. So, okay, I just have to keep myself out of trouble. But then what they'll do, and this happened to me, they give you a 10-year thing where if you're ever found with a gun or doing something whatever, then more trouble comes back. So they got you on a leash still.
Yeah.
See what I mean? So that's how they work.
Yeah,
That's how they work. My mother says what they do is they're trying to get a jacket on you. And the jacket is a set of crimes, a set of things that you've done, so that they can finally, on the day, really hit you.
Right.
They're not going to get you on the little piece of weed. They're not going to get you on the little breach. They're not going to get you on the little thing. But come down the line, you do something, whatever, when they really want to smack you, then they've got like his priors. This is what he did, this is what he did. But all the way along, you've been paying, you go for a job, oh, well, you've got a criminal record, sorry, we can't hire you.
Yeah.
All the time they keep, right? And you as a living spirit have to live. So you keep giving your energy out to shit, but then you're never able to get to that level. But then you realize that they're all criminals too. They're the biggest criminals.
And us being criminals against ourselves. Because in order for those guys to be criminals and to exercise the things that they're exercising criminally, they need a victim. There's nobody who's doing criminality out there not doing it to a victim. Anybody who's doing criminality, they're looking for a weaker person to go do that against.
This is what I realized about crime. Crime, for the most part, is taking something from someone else that's not yours. Whether it's in one form,
forfeiture,
in one form or another.
punch you in
It's
the face,
about
take your wallet.
separating you from something to take it from them in a criminal means. If I go and chop some wood for you and you give me money, that's called work.
Right.
But if I come over to your house and take the wood, that's called a crime. That's what's going on. So it's crime, but there has to be something taken from someone else, and that's us. But we also are involved in that whole process. But we're also forced. And I was thinking about this today. Todd was saying in one of his videos. Take a look at this. Remember this. As we're trying to find ourselves, we're always looking for God, aren't we?
Right.
And what he says, in every neighborhood, there's a church at least 4 blocks away from each other. I looked at my neighborhood, St. Clair and Oakwood. I just started to count the churches.
Yeah.
Every couple of blocks there's a church.
Yeah.
Downtown, every couple of blocks there's a church. And they said the churches are the spy centers.
Yeah.
This is where you go, because when you've lost yourself, you're looking for God. You're looking for God. But God's within. But then you're supposed to go in here and say to some European guy, oh, help me. Oh, why don't you put
And he's
$5?
supposed to help you or whatever.
And then, oh, why don't you put $5 in the thing?
Yeah.
Go pray. He's never done anything for you. He's never given you a job. He's never done anything. Right?
Right.
Sorry, I just like
That's
that's
all
the
good.
stuff that was all kind of coming to me because I was in my neighborhood, Oakland and St. Clair, right? I said, there's a church on every other blinking block here,
Yeah.
and they're empty. So
Yeah.
what's really going on there? What are they doing in
They're
there?
empty.
And evil is worse now than it's ever been.
Yeah. Right. 2, the term forfeiture has been defined in the legal context as loss of some right or property as a penalty for some illegal act. Right? So they're not just taking the stuff. They're saying that an illegal act was performed. Drug dealing or whatever. So we're gonna take the $1,000. Not we're taking the $1,000 because or whatever. Something happened. And because there was illegal activity, we have reason to believe that, everything in here has something to do with the crime. So we're going to take everything because, it has to do with the crime for the evidence or whatever. But then when you show all the movies, you see the guy who put the evidence always going back, when this place is closed or whatever like that. Go to the evidence locker, to switch the bullets and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And putting stuff and all that.
Or the drugs disappear.
Or the drugs disappear, or the money disappeared, or whatever. Actually, the Schwarzenegger movie that just came out was about that. About these officers that robbed some bank or whatever like that.
Right.
And then they hid the money, but it wasn't the bank's money, it was some Mexican mafia's money.
Well, that's the one where he's in the town. He's in the town. And he's fighting them off, and they come back for the money. Yeah.
Because they thought, just money sitting there, 10 million. Are we gonna skim off the top?
But you see, this is where I realized too, right? That's why I watch a lot of the European movies, because they're telling you the truth.
They let you know what's up.
Because the truth is where it is. Because most of the time, the drug dealers, that's where they are keeping the money.
Let you know what's up.
Because the banks are part of it. The banks, okay, they'll pay a little interest, but that's right. So the cops come to rob it, but they're really robbing from the biggest robber. And he's a guy who rules by force. So he's going to come and shoot those guys.
They don't play jail and stuff like that. They play, and all that stuff was going on through the movie, finding, mercenary, rob somebody, nailed to something, or found them in their house, shot up or whatever like that. They're supposed to be the law enforcement. But law enforcement, they can't defend themselves against somebody who they're supposed to be going after or whatever. But then they're gonna come after you because you didn't make a payment of whatever. They're gonna come steal your house and they're gonna let these guys get away with whatever they get away with.
Remember, just because, as I said, it keeps coming to you, the FBI, who they keep pushing as the sort of law.
Yeah.
You realize if the government is fraudulent, then the FBI has to be fraudulent.
Right.
So when we're talking about the FBI and the FBI is doing this and the FBI is doing that, that's just an arm of their criminal activity. It's dressed up as police, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a blue uniform and put a gun on it with a red stripe, and all of a sudden I'm the law. Really, I'm a robber. Same thing with the FBI. What they are really is they are the government's arm of the higher up of the higher up criminals, and they're going after the bigger criminals, the guys who can really protect themselves. So then you've got this covering of these people who are supposed to be law, but they're really just organized criminals. And that's why then you have the CIA, who's the real dirty guys who you never even know about.
Yeah.
But they're the ones really, the Osamas, Osama bin Laden, all the real criminals who are out there creating real shit that then allows them, the government, to come in and sort of
And
stop.
say, oh yeah, this bad stuff's going on. ISIS is terrorizing.
We need to stop Osama when Osama was one of their guys.
Yeah, yeah. We need to stop ISIS when the ISIS guys are ex-CIA.
Is that why they come up with all these things like they say the war on terror?
Right.
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
And also too, for what we were talking about earlier, that once they say war on whatever, that gives them jurisdiction to also tax people.
Right.
And have
So
interest
like
rates
airstrikes and all that stuff.
interest rates of 25%.
Because we got to fight the war.
Because we got to fight the war. When the war is being funded by corporations, government tax money and all that stuff isn't
Who they're
going
being funded
into.
by are the arms people. You're talking about how the guns get in there. It would be like a gun corporation funding a set of guys, sending the guns over there. Then you've got another.
I always question that. How did those guys like ISIS and those guys get those
guns,
weapons?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And what I've
Because
understood,
they're ex
well, the same thing.
military or whatever.
Tom is breaking this down. He says that there are no allies to the United States corporation who the United States hasn't paid for.
Right.
And there are no criminals who are against us who they haven't conspired to make against us, as in us, rather than them.
Right.
The criminal is those guys are actually trying to come for our land, not them.
Yeah.
They're against us. So they have created those guys, like the Osamas and those people, to supposedly come after us. But they're really their boys. They paid to say, okay, now come and try and cause shit here.
Right.
Come cause shit in our country. And then now what we do is we say, hey, we need taxes to fight this guy.
Right. And then the people just give it up. They consent. Because they're stupid and they don't read.
Or they're basically
know.
trying to drive fear into the hearts of people to make them think that.
Fear is one of the major things that they do. That's what 9/11 was all about. Don't you get it? 9/11 was them saying that Iraq bombed us, but then they said it was they said it was Osama who bombed us.
Yeah.
They said it was Osama bin Laden, and then they went after Iraq and the oil.
Yeah.
So you just get so confused. You're like, okay, they
Get everybody.
They said it was this guy, but I said it was you, and then I went after him.
Yeah.
We didn't even.
So they're using them as a threat to generate money out of civilians.
Right.
But also
to fight the threat that they created.
But also to then go after different shit. Because what I understood on that day, the only people flying out of that country were the Bin Ladens anyways, because they owned all the oil in Saudi Arabia. Those were the only planes leaving that country on that day where all of their people were getting out of town before the shit hit the fan because they were going to blame them for it. And then they went after Iraq and said that Iraq was the one who had nuclear bombs in there, and then went there and took off all the oil, remember, bombed all those oil fields. They tried that again in 1999 when all the oil fields were burning. Remember that first attempt? They couldn't get it done then. They waited 10 years, bombed that place, and then came after them again.
And then with regard to for example, with that burning the oil fields or bombing
children and all
bombing Philadelphia with Move 9, taking Malachi York stuff, bulldozing all Malachi York stuff, that's because of the not being able to implement civil forfeiture and taking stuff. So they just destroy it so nobody gets it. Right? But they're still doing that under the guise of a fraud, even going and destroying the stuff. Just like when they go try to take the stuff, it's under a fraud. Because they know that they don't really have jurisdiction to really reach out and touch. Right? But they can stand from here and point and then use their little court, whatever, to, their bought off judge, deputy, whatever, whoever, clerk, chief, whoever, to sign off on something to say, oh yeah, that's, you need to go claim that over there. Just sign this right here so we can go claim it. Without having to do the force and drag the stuff out of the building. Same thing that they do with children in children's aid services situation, right? That they would have the parents doing criminal court stuff at the same time as the family court stuff. And if the parents can't be in the family court, then that means they default. And then Children's Aid is going to have to step in as the help for abandoned children or whatever. Claim them as property.
The father is messed up.
Right? Claim them as property. Civil forfeiture. Because, they abandoned child or whatever like that. Under the guise of there's some criminal activity going on. Same thing again. They play this game.
And
right?
then the last thing I was wanting to say about the media, you keep watching, every time you turn on the TV, it's always a judge, cop show, whatever. They keep propagating the fact that there's really this legal, lawful stuff going on. So that next time you see a judge, you're like, don't you remember you saw Law and Order? That judge is a judge. They keep that in their consciousness that these people are
right. That's just like
it's just like you and me. We went out of here. We got a black robe on. We just put it on. We just went up there. We read some books. That's it. So, but that's what I realized. The media behind it is about keeping your consciousness in and believing that they're the law. That's why you pick up the paper. You turn on CP24. Everything is propagated to keep your mind thinking that they're doing the right thing, or that there's law. Or that that's what this Ebola thing is now, on the side issue. The Ebola thing is, think about this. They said 4,000 deaths. That's been about 6 months. In that one plane crash, they killed 3,000 people on that tower. Right. Yet now, Ebola is the end of the world right now. 4,000 people have died in 6 months. And yet, they still have people flying in and out of that country all the time. They haven't even stopped that yet. So, what's going on?
Right.
What is really going on? And now it's reached here.
And if it's really, something like that, you wouldn't let nobody fly out of nowhere.
You would have quarantined that whole area. Right?
Or you let people get on a plane or whatever, they got
contagious stuff. So guess what? This is, and leave me here, what they can do, well, the human spirit and the body can fight all this. Any of that stuff that they create, we can battle, so they know that. But what the thing is if they want to decide to try and have civil control, they can just let the outbreak out a little bit more.
Right.
And then they can start locking you down, start controlling the movements. Now we've got to quarantine Toronto.
But remember, if we once we acknowledge that the government and the blah blah blah, then all the madness continues, right? Because it's a documented fact that all these governments in North America that call themselves a government, they've been dissolved since 1933, and they're insolvent and they're bankrupt. So there's no such thing as the government, but if the people aren't being it, if the people aren't recognizing that I self-law am master, we're the government out here, then these guys are going to continue doing whatever they do. Just based on, them being uttered out of our mouth, but not as a fraud, as they are who they say that they are. And they're not who they say they are. They're a fraud. There's no Canadian, there's no queen or nothing like that that has nothing around here, as far as government's concerned.
Just letting people, once the people believe, I guess like Alice in Wonderland or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like Alice in Wonderland. Yeah. Once you don't know that you can click your heels twice and go home, then we're stuck here. dealing with, you know, monkeys running around or whatever like that.
That's Wizard of
Guys
Oz.
behind Wizard of Oz, I mean, guys behind curtains doing stuff and pretending that when that's not really what it is that's going on, right? It's definitely putting us in a position to get the abuse that we're complaining about, because nobody's acknowledging that. Hold on a second, yeah, how come you guys are talking about civil forfeiture and you're not talking about you guys are immigrants? And there's no such thing as no Thanksgiving or whatever like that. Columbus coming here and all this type of stuff. That's not what, right? Easter eggs, bunnies, and all that. Like, all that is a fraud. But, you know, the people being in the mindset that they're in don't even know nighttime from daytime. They don't know, like we're talking about, you know, fluoride. They'll tell you, yeah, 5% or whatever is in this water. And then you go check the periodical table or whatever and see, oh, okay, well, that means fluoride. But, you know, that's grade 7, grade 6 or whatever science class. That people
Just goes over their heads, yeah.
You know, from what I understand, like, even, they're not even practicing law, they cannot practice
exactly.
what they try to enforce is just regulation.
Right, codes, ordinances, statutes, because that's the only thing that they have jurisdiction over. They don't have jurisdiction over, but that's why they were saying that the okay, the term forfeiture has been defined in the legal context as loss of some right or property as a penalty for some illegal act. Under the existing federal statutory scheme, forfeitures may arise as a criminal action, such as RICO Act. Right? So letting you know that it's a federal fraud. It's criminal. And that it's trickled down into the municipal or whatever, because those guys are doing that too when they stop people out here. Oh yeah, oh, you don't have a license or whatever, oh, you don't have insurance, okay, well, we're gonna take your car. And then they impound and then charge you $500 a day to get it out. That's racketeering, civil forfeiture, extortion. That's mafia stuff. That's not civil. That's the grimy of the grimy. You know what I mean? And then they're doing that under the disguise of law. When it's really color of law. And people don't know that it's color of law because, you know, they don't even know what law is. So because they don't know what right law is, they don't even know what wrong law is. And then half the time they're giving all their power to wrong law and saying things, you know, like, you know, oh yeah, the police should do this and the government should do this, and, you know, how come the government doesn't? That's not a government. They've been bankrupt since 1933. What aren't people getting? That there's no government right now, right? All these so-called officers, police officers, or whatever that people call them, they're out here in the street, and they really don't have the authority of law enforcement. That's mob rule. But then, you know, mob rule is really democracy. That people think is, you know, by the people government. Oh yeah, democracy, you know, we need democratic society and whatever like that. Begging for mob rule. And then when they get mob rule, then they're complaining about people taking advantage of their rights, doing civil forfeiture, stealing their stuff. When they set that up themselves, the people, by not knowing really what it is that's going on. Not knowing that man is the actual, the real deal living being is the spirit in man, not man, not the individual in front of you. The spirit that's making that individual appear in front of you is what really.
That's why it's the breath
it is.
that keeps you up, that keeps you going. Without the breath, you're dead. That's why they say 3 minutes with the breath gone, you're out. So really, it's that spirit. And the spirit is supposed to be like, you know, the spirit, the air sort of thing, right? But another thing I was thinking about in there, How come everything is always focused on death, crime, and whatever? I was thinking to myself, how come we're not talking about love and helping people out? How come the papers aren't always about helping people out? We've got ourselves always primed and talking about crime, law, police, whatever. So once that stuff is in your consciousness, that's all you're ever about, right? And then about survival, money, they keep you in a certain mind frame. It's never about help. It's never about love. It's always about crime, ISIS, terror, thing. So you're always vibrating at that level.
Oh, and just to put on the record for people who might not know, fear is false education appearing real. So fear is not an emotion. Fear is us having a misconcept of something and then trying to act on the misconcept. Or not acting on the misconcept because of that false education that we got. If we had the right education, we wouldn't have fear. Right? For example, with one of the more same situation, been locked up, we got, stats or stuff like this. They know who he is or whatever. He did his time, came out, got onto the information. Now they don't want to talk to him now. They'll see him 5 times in a week and not stop him once. Because, he's spoke to them with the right mind. After they assume you're a black guy or whatever like that, we're going to abuse you. Then he came into knowledge of self or came into master himself. And when he started engaging those people, they don't want to deal with him. They don't even care about what he did in the past, whether he did time or not or whatever like that. It's about, hi, how you doing? See you later. No conversations, no fill out the card, no come check your pockets and stuff like that. What you got in there, and none of that anymore. Those days are over. Because now he's moving with a right mind now. So they know that we could leave him alone because he's not going to be a criminal. Not that they have jurisdiction, because they're a fraud, they're the real criminals or whatever. And what he really did was expose the fact that they're really the criminals, so they don't want to approach him because just the fact that they approach him is criminal. If you have the right mind. Just the fact that they come to you, hey, hi, what's your name or whatever, that's criminal. Right? But they'll do that to any and everybody else all they want. Just because. People don't know. Right? People forfeit their mentality and give it to somebody else. And then now these foreigners are claiming their mentality and using their own mentality against them because they don't have hold on their own consciousness. I want to know how come all this stuff is happening. Right? With forfeitures of this scale, the broad reach of the civil forfeiture statutes come into direct conflict with the rights of innocent third parties who engage in legitimate commercial dealings with the alleged wrongdoer. Right? So the person who's claiming civil forfeiture is already doing something wrong and illegitimate. They're already doing something. That's why they're even saying civil forfeiture. Because an honest, upright individual is not going to give you a ticket for something and then steal all your stuff just because it's sitting there. Like, you should have been able to go back and your house is just exactly how it is or whatever, right? For you to go back after you do 5 months, 5 years or whatever like that. Somebody call you, we're going to put your stuff in storage or whatever like that. We're going to pay for it. When you come out, you need to pay us back because, we know this is your property. In a civilized society, that's what would go down. In an uncivilized society, people lose their stuff. Hard work that they put in to get the stuff that they have, that they call property, their own stuff or whatever like that, it could be gone just because some fraudulent judge, whoever that he wants to call himself, has somebody else, not even him, have somebody else sign some order saying, yeah, go to that property right there across the street and take everything.
Well, what more than likely a situation like yours that'll happen? The vultures start to come in. What happens? You're gone. The landlord says, okay, whatever. Maybe he keeps your girl there because the rent's been paid. She gets last month's rent. Maybe she has a problem getting rid of the stuff. He comes in and he says, I'll take the TV. I'll take the couch. You don't know if you've moved out of there. Maybe the next people have that stuff in there. He may have sold the stuff off. I know a lot of landlords that's how they do their stuff. When people get kicked out or move out, they take the stuff and they sell it. That's big business for them. Right? Your girl may have had, your ex-girl or whatever may have had certain activities, but what happens is once your stuff is gone, then the vultures come out, right? That's what it is. So, I mean, and that's a terrible thing. That's happened to me too with my girls and stuff. We had some problem. I ended up in jail. I had a little Nintendo whatever. I come back out. I said, you bought that for my birthday? Oh, well, whatever. And she had sold it. And that's how it goes. Those are your energies. If they end up, that's what it is. It's about taking your energies and then putting you in a place.
Right, and keep that in mind with regard to everything, even things that are supposedly not connected or living entities.
Oh,
when CAS, comes in the house and takes a child out, that's the same thing, civil forfeiture.
Oh, but wait, we haven't even told them about what the real part of it is. Once they've taken control of you, they're getting money for you. The instant they put you in jail, they're going into a pot of money.
Yeah, because I heard it costs like a certain amount.
That's right. So that money is paying the guards, that money's paying this person, that money's paying that person. So they're going into an account, your account, and taking money out to support them, to supposedly look after you because you are not like that. Same with your child. Take your child.
So basically, they're taking my energy and making money off of it.
Right. Right. But they're not really making money off it. Really, they're just taking the energy.
Yes. Yeah, they're just taking the energy because it was your money. Because ultimately, for example, because this is your land, this would be your property. Let's say, so they take you from it like that. That apartment you were living in, that was your land. So then they go rent that out to someone else. That's your money. It's really your money that they're taking from you. But because you then, because of the so-called law or legally they have you, you then become their property. And then they are entitled to go into your account to look after you. So that's the other half of the game. The other half of the game, first half of the game is taking the shit that you have. The other half of the game is getting paid to look after you because supposedly you're not competent to look after yourself. So that's, well, yeah, or the public pool of taxes. Because then it would be set up to say, okay, we've got to look after this guy, and it costs the prisoner $200 a day when they're paying you, when what I found out was that the average meal that a prisoner gets is $3. For that actual meal, it's only $3. But they'll say that it's $15. So the other $12 goes to
whatever else that they want to put it to.
Housing the man, but it's your land. They built the jail over, it costs $50 to house him. That's my land that you got me housed on.
Yeah.
But, so that's how they do it. They go into the public, and that's where the so-called taxes go into.
And the taxes is what goes to the corporation.
And the corporation is the jail. And the judge. That's how it goes.
So they have this.
So that's what I'm saying. Do you see how layered it is?
Yeah,
it's layered on every
that.
blinking level that you can't imagine. You go in there, you're screwed from them. Then once you go to jail, they're paying the judge for his services out of your pool, out of your birth certificate.
Right. But again, that idea is what they created. So they can do that with that. The problem is that when we see that now, oh, the birth certificate $1 million, and then we want to go try to get down with the birth certificate, take months. Same things came off the top. But they're not going to miss nothing. There's $50 million in there. You guys give me $1 million off of this. Well, then if you get $1 million off of that, then you're admitted that you're down with the fraud. When you should be denouncing the fraud. You shouldn't be trying to get a benefit out of the fraud.
You see, that to me is the last part of it. They've psychologically been won. Because we're now playing the same game.
Now we're playing the game now.
Now we're playing the robbery game. When really we have to step back up and say we were the gods of this. We are the rulers and the owners of this land to get the fuck out of here. I'm not paying you nothing. And they'd say, well, what are you going to do with that? What we're going to do, we're going to get our wood back, we're going to get our gold, everything that they, because what I realized too, all the food, no steak comes from someone creating it, the steak comes from an entity. The tree comes from, it's the land, that's ours. They've got it, and they've got us paying for it. Whenever I go to the grocery mart, I'm like, this is my apple.
Yeah.
This is my apple.
That I'm buying right now.
Huh?
That I'm buying.
That I'm buying. My own apple I'm buying from this guy. And then paying tax for it.
Yeah.
It gets me. Sometimes it gets me to a point where I'm like, the oil's mine, the gas is mine. And I'm paying them for it.
Right? Yeah. Millions.
Millions would be all right. It's the billions.
Right? But then, thank God, they're not really making billions because everything's fiat.
Yeah.
Right?
But what I realized,
So,
what the game behind that is, though, is that they're sucking up the gold. It's the gold and the silver, the real stuff. So they've got you chasing after the money,
right.
and they're collecting the
They're
gold.
collecting the gold, the
That's why
silver,
they have
the
the gold
platinum,
mines,
or whatever
and all the
else.
silver mines. That's the real wealth. Well, they've got us chasing after paper that they're just printing. Oh, we need some more? Print some more. And then I go to the store. I realize this too. I was like, go give a man a 20. He then goes, takes that 20 and goes buys some juice. That man goes from the juice and goes buy some liquor. It's just barter.
It's really a barter system. Ironically, forfeiture of commercial assets is an inadvertent attack on private property rights perpetrated by the very governmental officials who are sworn to protect and defend those rights. The underlying issue is how to balance the commercially reasonable expectations of third parties with the legitimate forfeiture interests of the government. The dollar value of assets subject to federal forfeiture action has risen dramatically in recent years. As of September 30th, 1990, the Department of Justice, the agency responsible for executing civil forfeiture actions, had a $478 million balance in its assets forfeiture fund. By 1993, the value of forfeited assets in the Department of Justice inventory had grown to $1.8 billion, including 31,690 pieces of property, real and personal. This is why, right, praise Allah, that when we had the debate with Ali Muhammad and we put out their jurisdiction, what they rule under, as far as saying that, they're the authority Moors, come join our stuff, so that way we can blah, blah, blah. But then you find out that everybody who joins down with these individual stuff gets their properties stolen.
What?
Everybody who gets down with the fraudulent Moors, speaking from the perspective that they have authority. But when you go check their authority comes from IRS, Department of Justice, and all these elements of this bankrupt corporation. You realize that's why people's stuff gets stolen, because the Department of Justice is responsible for executing civil forfeiture up to $478 million, and they're the ones that actually execute it. So all these people that's losing their property, they're not losing their property because of, Moors or whatever. They're losing property because these individuals are registered with the Department of Justice, whose main job is to do civil forfeiture. They got $478 million balance. This is 1993 they had that. 1993. What they got now? Right? And then there's, Moors speaking from the perspective of, Department of Justice gave them authority, IRS gave them authority, when they're all frauds. Fraud knows fraud best, right? And fraud always stands up for fraud. So just so we can tie civil forfeiture to out here, right? So people, because people used to like, oh well, how, that doesn't apply to Canada, and you know, you guys keep talking about American stuff, and this is Canada. Well, this is all the jurisdiction of America. So anything that happens anywhere else in North America, could happen in Canada. So people better pay attention to what's going on. So this is from July 4th, 2014. Concerns mount over cruel and unfair civil forfeiture process in British Columbia. So in British Columbia, people are talking up about civil forfeiture there, right? That was Globe and Mail, July 4th. And then February 2014, Globe and Mail again. BC Forfeiture Office, a cash cow from the former Solicitor General, talking about, yes, they do this process of civil forfeiture, and they're taking anything from anybody. They're taking any and everything from anybody who has it to give. Why? Because majority of these people think that they're Canadian citizen or whatever like that, so that they're connected to the government and they're a citizen, so they got rights because the Charter of Rights and Freedoms gives them rights and whatever like that, when all that stuff is a fraud. And all these people are setting themselves up to be civilly forfeited of everything, including their life probably, eventually. Because they don't want to recognize what's really going on. Right? One of the Moors gave me this booklet called Are You Aboriginal? And this is put out by the Ontario Federation of Indian Friendship Centers, Aboriginal Legal Services of Toronto, Community Legal Education of Ontario, and Legal Aid or the Law Foundation of Ontario funding this project, and to Legal Aid Ontario for supporting it. So this is what they know, as far as all these courts around here that we say go pay tickets on there. Right? This is what they know. If you are an Aboriginal person, the judge must take your background into account when setting bail or deciding what sentence to give you. The judge must look at all the options beside jail. Judges have this duty to all Aboriginal peoples of Canada living on or off reserve, including First Nations status and non-status Indians, Métis Indians with or without a Métis card, and Inuit. It does not matter if you live in a non-Aboriginal community or if you were adopted and raised by non-Aboriginal parents or in foster homes. If you are Aboriginal, this applies to you. Another way of saying it is, if you are Aboriginal, Gladu applies to you. Why is the word Gladu used in this way? The word Gladu, G-L-A-D-U-E, G-L-A-D-U-E, is taken from the name of an important case that came before the Supreme Court of Canada in 1999. An Aboriginal woman named Jamie Gladu was the accused person in that case. In speaking about the case, the court said very important things to judges about the way they sentence Aboriginal people. The court did this because it saw that far too many Aboriginal people are sent to jail. The court said there is racism against Aboriginal people within Canada and in the jail system. Now, the word Gladu is used to speak about the things judges must consider when they are setting bail or deciding what kind of sentence to give an Aboriginal person. Now, what we're going to recognize, we'll pass this around, is that in this jurisdiction, they got these individuals right here that they say is called a judge, right? And then some of them have the red sash, and then some of them have green, right? And then red and green, you already know, comes from the jurisdiction of the Moors, because we're the real judges are on it. So they have to masquerade as us in order to execute law. But they're a fraud. So they're only able to exercise because we're not exercising. They're only able to have this pseudo power because we're not taking the power and wielding it for ourselves. So, and you're gonna go up in there and you'll see them. They're wearing the black cloak, just like what Muslims wear before they go to mosque or whatever, with a red sash on there. Dressing up like Moors. No different than Masons dress up like Moors. And nobody wants to acknowledge or recognize the fact that these people are dressing up like Moors.
One question. You said that comes from legal aid, right?
Yeah.
Is it legal aid Ontario or?
Yeah.
So
legal
isn't legal aid aren't they some sort of like when you get like sent to jail and then you don't have enough money to pay for a lawyer or something like that?
Right.
You apply for legal aid.
Right.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Those people.
Yeah.
Right. But they're not really giving you any legal aid.
Because they never gave me no information like that.
Yeah,
They just basically told me like, I had to apply for a lawyer.
Right.
Or they gave me like a list of lawyers, and
Right.
then once I picked a lawyer, then I sent in my application for legal aid, and then they got back to me saying that
you're approved or whatever like that, and then they take your case.
Yeah.
Based on your, financial or lack of financial stability.
Yeah.
They're gonna appoint somebody for you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in them appointing somebody for you, they claim jurisdiction. Because really, we're supposed to be talking for ourselves.
Yeah.
Really, it's like when, and I'm sure you experienced this, that you'll be in court and the lawyer is talking about something that you also have knowledge of, but he's not talking about the things that he should be talking about at that point. He's talking about something else that, you're sitting there like, they're not telling them about the stuff or whatever, because that's not their jurisdiction. So they work for the court. So things that they're going to present is going to be to the benefit of the court, not to the benefit of getting this individual off who hired me. When it's not really hiring, because they put the person on you. If you didn't pay them, then they don't really have to do what you say, really. They could come to you, get some information, but to implement it might not happen. Just because, you know what I mean? Right? So if look at it from the perspective of, if those guys could do stuff for free, then everybody should be doing it for free. How come legal aid does it for free? Right? Legal aid is gonna do it for free, right? But just came to get here.
All right.
Say the words out.
Yes, all right. Have a good day.
Yeah, peace out. Right? So if they're gonna say I'm legal aid for whoever, right? And they're gonna take the position of going through your case, filing this, that for free. And they're called lawyer. And they pass a bar exam, whatever like that, they have a bar card. Then anybody should be able to get a lawyer to do some stuff.
I got through legal aid too. But the deal is with legal aid is they get $90 an hour for legal aid. Whereas real lawyers want $200 to $300 an hour. That's the real deal. So ultimately, you're getting your $90 worth of stuff, which is usually nothing, right? So what happens is, that's why all
because the standard of right law is, $50,000 an hour. And if you want to get off your stuff, pay $50,000 an hour, or you're gonna get off for sure. If you pay
$100 an hour, you're gonna get $100 worth of what do you call it? Worth of justice.
Justice. Yeah.
You're gonna get your $100 worth of justice, which somehow always seems to mean a lower level of
law.
Of law for you.
Or justice.
Or justice. Right. So that's what it is.
Yeah, what I was gonna say there, I think most like institutions when you see like the like one city or other country, they're all like corporations.
Right.
Like even the police department, they're all like
Brother, that's one you see. The one thing you have to understand is not most. All of them are.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is. Even the church is a corporation, hidden and veiled under religion and being connected with God. They're a corporation. They get a tax break for being a corporate entity.
Yeah. That's why they're everywhere.
But not only that, what I was trying to tell you before about the churches being in every area in the poor neighborhood is because they want to keep an eye on shit. And they expect that the mothers will be sending the children there, and the trouble gets the shit, and they're selling their children back to Rome to go in there and learn to pray to God. But ultimately, if you're in the church, you're probably up to less badness than you are out on the street. But ultimately, that church is not going to be getting you out of anywhere. It's not getting you out of anything.
Because what happens with you know, when people force their children to adopt this pseudo form of spirituality, right? That they call Christianity, Roman Catholicism, whatever. What usually happens? The daughter mainly, you hear that she broke out. Right? She broke out and she, you know what I mean? And then she started going dance and everything there because, you know, church was holding her back from expressing herself as, you know what I mean? And then she ends up, you know, 8 children or whatever like that.
The other side to
caught
that,
up in some madness.
or the other side to that is she's married up and has children, probably not to the right guy because they haven't created the right environment to begin with, right? So it's the two streams. Either they're out because the church is crazy, or they become robots.
In it.
Right? Listen, when I came out of my stuff, because I was in the game too, but I got myself unfortunately caught up on the substance, I walked by a Roman Catholic church and said, this is the calling. I went through the thing, and what was crazy, I went through the whole thing where I had to start at Easter and wait until Easter, which is all crazy. But during that period of time, which was really crazy, there were a couple of times when I was going through the classes when the fire alarm kept going off. We had to keep clearing the building. I was taking that as a sign, but I didn't understand what that sign meant. And then one of the times, if you go to the churches, you know how they have they'll have those reliefs. They're it's like the priest, and he's in stone.
Right.
Like they've got that little cutout, and they've got like Saint Michael there or whatever.
Holding something or whatever. Yeah.
One of them had fallen off from the top of the thing and broken. And I still didn't understand what the sign was. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then I went in there, and there were all these ladies in there, and they were all like caught up. And but what I realized, it was a control thing. And then they had you in there, and you were supposed to go to church. While you were going there, you were supposed to go to classes on Tuesday. I'm sure, I can't remember what the day was, but the day was obviously significant. You were supposed to go there Sunday, and you were supposed to be putting in your donations. Donations, right? So what I realized, it's a form of control, mind control. So the lowest forms of them are all the people in the church. So there's a lot of good people in there, but if you're in those European churches with the European Christ, so to speak, sitting up on that wall, and you're praying to that, not realizing that was expressing the fact that they killed the Savior. They didn't save. He's not alive. They tortured him.
Right.
So you're in there praying to these people who are about that.
Now the other thing that I want to touch on. Everybody's clear on civil forfeiture? Any questions? You have the thing?
Yeah.
We'll just let you, because we implore.
What's the next?
We implore people to when they start getting into this information and stuff like that, that you actually take possession of the information. Don't ever look at it like, you know, the people who are at the front or the heads or the whatever are the ones that have the info, and then we're going to put you on to something, and then now you have it because somebody put you on. It's all this is your stuff that you were absent about.
And after you give the definition
Yeah.
Forfeiture. Can you explain about this lyric levy?
Okay, yeah.
Well, the only thing that I realized is that I liken this to being living. I saw this as being covered in mud. I use the analogy of being in a pit of mud. That's what it's like being black, Negro colored. And as you climb out of the mud, right, you leave the mud behind, the mud's still on you. The mud's drying. This is the information. As the information comes, you're climbing out, and then as you're walking along, the mud's slowly drying, but the mud's still caked on. And you have to sort of peel off the mud, and then what's left is you. But it's a path. You can't, there's no one book that's going to do it. It's a living experience. And the problem is, and this is what I realized, and I kept used to be using this analogy with him about being in prison, because we are in prison. We're colonized. We are prisoners of war. We are the descendants of our forefathers who fought these people, came to a treaty, and then what happened was they didn't honor the treaty. And then what they did was they converted us back from our free stuff into slaves, and we were just property. It's a convoluted game where they've got you working, but because we're these spiritual beings, they've got to have us convinced. Because we could just all kill ourselves. All of us could just massively kill ourselves. They'd be done. They've got to keep us, but we also have this thing to live. So they've got to keep us doing stuff, believing stuff. Believing that this is all this and this is all that. That's what it's all about. What I realized is that their sorcery is such that if you go and turn on the TV, or when you walk out there, the information is continuing to bombard you. It keeps bringing you back. So really, you have to continue to surround yourself, bring yourself back to this information, be stuck in this information to free yourself. Because it's like, I liken it to like the water. It's like you're in a river, and the water keeps coming down, the water keeps coming down. You have to find a way to separate yourself and be above that. Because if not, if you let go for a little bit, then you're going to go back on EI. You're going to go back on thing. You're going to go whatever, right? Right? Or when the police pull you over, you're not going to know your rights. So you're going to give them their license rather than fighting them. It's a fight. These people aren't going to let go. That's the other thing. When you decide to say, hey, I'm a Moor, you still got to be able to stand on your ground and tell them to their face what this is about. Who are you? What are your rights? Here's my nationality card. Who are you? Where are your rights? When you're in front of the judge, I want to see the letter that says that you have the right to tell me who you are. They don't have it. But the problem is they got 5 of them, you're alone, you've got all these people, they're all watching, there's all this energy. It's always energy. So that's what it is. The problem is that you don't have enough. You go to their schools, everything that they're doing, they're teaching us to be like them.
Be opposite of what we're supposed to be. So to look at the master as outside of ourselves.
That's right.
When the master is ourself, absorbing this as ours, not, read a book, oh, I read this out of Black's Law, so that's Black Law stuff. No, this is my stuff. You know what I mean? You read something from some book, somebody, wrote a book, and you read it, and you get inspired by that book, That's your information. That's why you're inspired by it. It's not that individual. That's why we say we don't care about what the faces are. Forget about the faces and the names and whatever. Are you receiving the message? Are you vibrating on the frequency that's exuding from that individual that's presenting something? Not the individual, but the frequency that they're on. They're going to deliver a message, and within that message, there's going to be coded things that attach to you personally. That's not going to attach to anybody else. And once you get that, then you go on that. Right?
You keep moving on that.
Keep moving on that as
the further up and up and up and up.
Stuff will just be just like the river. Water will just be coming to you. Information just be coming to you that you don't even know what to do with all the information that you're getting.
And everything you start looking at will start to be looked at in a different way.
In a different light.
The police officer stops being that
police officer.
He starts being the criminal.
Right.
Right? The judge stops being the judge and he starts being the organized criminal.
Yeah.
Right? The welfare you start understanding that is them giving you your own money, but only portioning you out a little bit. The education you're getting starts becoming a lie. It starts becoming something that's trapping you rather than freeing you. So, and that's where it is, but that's part of the problem. And then finally, because we're all spirit, we start looking for, let's say, God, but if we turn to those churches, we're done.
Right.
And if you go in there and question them on it, you'll see. Start asking them. And one of the questions I was going to ask, so, right, because Tasha, he's like, so wait, Jesus was a Jew. So how come the Roman Catholics are Christian?
Yeah.
How come if they all hearken to
On
this
him, right.
to Jesus, how come they call themselves Christians?
Right.
Because there's no connection, because the true Jew was us. And the true Jew in the Bible is a guy with brown skin and curly hair. And he's this European dude with a long, white, with brown hair, a big beard, and white.
Yeah.
And then how come you guys killed him? Doesn't make sense. And then how come you always need our money? How come it's always our money that you need? How come you ain't giving us anything?
Or how come you don't just, get a direct connection with God, give you the money? If it's your boy, you need money for the church or whatever, this is God's church. Why am I giving money to give God? Why does God give you the money for the stuff?
Yeah, because how come they ain't telling you the church go home and pray? They always tell you come here to pray on
Yeah.
Sunday and give us some money. And the basket's always coming around.
Yeah, always coming around.
So I don't know if you want a lady thing or you want me to read.
Let's touch on this.
Forfeiture,
Yeah.
something to which the right is lost by the commission of a crime or fault or the losing of something by way of a penalty. That's it. And then it goes on. The other meanings of it are, they separate the meanings. One, a punishment annexed by law to some illegal act or negligence in the owner of the land. Two, the loss of land by a tenant to his lord as the consequence of some breach of fidelity. Three, the loss of lands and goods to the state as the consequence of a crime. Four, the loss of goods or chattels as a punishment for some crime or misdemeanor in the party forfeiting, that would be you, and as a compensation for the offense and the injury. So if you hurt someone, they're going to come and take your house, right? Five, the loss of office by abuser, non-user. So if you're a mayor and you're smoking crack, right, you should forfeit your office. Six, the loss of a corporate franchise or charter. That's if you're owning some business and then you're ripping someone off. Seven, the loss of the right to life if you took someone else's life, right? Eight, the incurring a liability to pay a definite sum of money as the consequence of violating the provisions of some statute, remember he mentioned that, or refusal to comply with some requirement of law. Eight, a thing or a sum of money forfeited, something imposed as a punishment for an offense of delinquency. The word in this sense is frequently associated with the word penalty. 10, in mining law, the loss of mining claim held by public for whatever.
With regard to Gladue, the reason why we brought it up is to show that in their own pamphlet, that they know what our position is as Aboriginal people. That what the fight that it seems that we have to go through. What we have to prove that we're this and prove this and prove that or whatever. They already know this. It's not even nothing to make a big deal about. The issue is that they never in their wildest dreams thought that the so-called Negro black colored people are going to wake up and recognize who they are. Right?
Not only that, they've been doing their damage to make sure we keep the
Make sure we don't.
Right? That's the other side of it. But remember, they have a karma thing too. So what they have to do is they have to have us agreeing with it. So when you come out and you get your license, and I used to say this, why is my shit all in capitals? I used to ask myself that question too. Oh, well, that's, whatever.
Convenience.
That's, whatever.
Font on the computers.
You didn't realize that there was an actual meaning behind that. And if you skip over that, you just go. Because there's certain keys that they tell you.
Yeah.
Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
So, one thing I found out, right, if you go on the internet, right, and look up what a corporation is, let's see what a registered corporation, they'll tell you that absolutely on campus.
Right.
So they tell you. That's what they tell you right there.
They tell you.
They tell you right. They tell you right there. Yeah. Then you look at your own birth certificate, and it's not caps.
Well, it's not your own, but not your own birth certificate.
Well, no, the one that they put on you,
Yeah.
the certificate that they put on you, that you walk around when they say, hey, can we see your birth certificate? And then you say, this is mine. You claim, and then they say, sign your name to it. It's all about co-opting, right?
I realize your ownership on your car doesn't expire by your license.
Right. Yeah.
So they're basically saying that the car is your
No, you mean ownership of the car.
Yeah, ownership.
Yeah, the ownership doesn't have a license, expiry date on it.
No, but the issue is, but the ownership never belonged to you anyways,
Right.
because the ownership is theirs.
It's theirs.
So they don't care about it. The license is what's interesting. How come your license expires in 5 years and you gotta pay another $100? Did you stop learning how to drive? No.
Yeah.
So how come, does my identity stop? Because everywhere you go, they always
They
ask you
want
for a
that
license.
as ID.
But then, when your license expires and you go somewhere and they go, oh, sorry, your license is expired, we can't take this as ID. You're like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
going
but
on
I'm here. I'm standing in front of you.
and this is still me. So what it is, and that's the $90 that they take off of you, and that's just the skinning. So if 5 million people are giving $90, work that out. 5 million times 90, it's what? $50 million. And then if they're ticketing just you guys every time they're driving by, because remember, we're visible. Well, there's another more. Let's ticket him. So then they just, more smoking some weed. Maybe that's our herb, right? All of a sudden, herb is illegal, right?
That's why they're so against tint. Because when you tint, they can't racially profile. When you tint, they don't know who's behind the wheel. So they might stop the wrong person, you wind out. Yeah, we got one. You guys like to tint their stuff, and the Negroes like to make their car look good or whatever, and then they wind out and it's judge whatever.
Well, but the
From
issue,
the court,
but what you realize and what I realize is the issue behind that is at night, that's how they know to pull you over, because when they punch up that plate, that plate is connected to you and your
and
face
whatever
comes
else
up.
you did.
Your face comes up on their picture, and they know it's a Moor back there. That's how they get you at night. That's why the tints are sort of weird, right? But if the computer goes down, there's a Moor, right?
So they have all these different ways to, like this was saying, with the Gladue thing. The court did this because it saw that far too many Aboriginal people are sent to jail. Right? So the Gladue thing came up because that case made them realize, or that case was the precedent for, hey, you know what? Somebody's taking abuse of indigenous people, so we're going to make sure that from this case on, indigenous people don't get blah, 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 and then they have the list of stuff or whatever. But remember that they're not the authority to speak about who should go to jail, who shouldn't go to jail, whatever. They're foreigners. It's not their land to make any decisions of who should go to jail or not. Especially if they haven't paid their taxes since they came here.
But remember this now. See how they've already taken ownership? They're the ones making the decision on something they have no right to make a decision on. To begin with. Yet we're then allowing them to say that.
Right? Because they're not doing that from a legitimate court. They're using the Supreme Court as an example of the ruling, but what they're talking about is municipal. Because they're talking about Aboriginal Legal Services of Toronto. And Ontario Federation of Indian Friendship and all this type of stuff. That's not federal. That's municipal. That's provincial. Which has nothing to do with federal.
You see, what I think it is, and this is what's interesting, it just came to me now, what I realize is every time they feel the energy's turn, that's why they then come up, they're like, oh, now we're going to have the police have profile, like, you know how they, just a while back, they had that thing where the police had to start writing out, I can't remember what it was, reports on who they were pulling over.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. They had to start, so that, because there was a worry that they were pulling over Indigenous people at a disproportionate rate. Of course, but then, who's really checking those books?
Yeah.
Right? And we never see the reports of any of that anyways. And then they've got their own people judging the stuff, right? They've got their own internal agency judging it. They're not giving that to the public. Yeah. They're letting their own boys, oh, well, I think it's fair that we're pulling over 10 guys to 1, right? Or you never see those numbers.
We got a couple questions online that we're going to answer. We just wanted to put some other things on the record as well. Found 1923 25 Matonas coin with Haile Selassie on it. Remember, this is 1923, right? He received his coronation in 1930. How come he's wearing the Triple Crown in 1923, before the coronation of him being emperor, where he received the Triple Crown? Because of the birthright. Triple Crown is not some religious fantasy. As a heir to the Solomonic dynasty, you're gonna carry yourself according. Because everybody knows that he was the king of Abyssinia, not Ethiopia. He was the king of an actual sovereign nation, not usurped jurisdiction. And as the sovereign of the land, you gotta wear your sovereign headwear. To the point where they put it on the money, so everybody remembered and never forget. But obviously they forgot. 50 years came and gone, and nobody knows what's up. Right? That was 1923. Yeah. The front.
When you were talking about Ethiopia,
Because the original name of Ethiopia is Abyssinia.
Right? Ethiopia is the corporate name.
Ethiopia is the corporate name. So once they create the corporate name, right? Then in order to overthrow, what they do is they just talk about the corporate name. Right? Like in order to overthrow, in order to
in order to keep the jurisdiction in the overthrown position, they have to keep
they speak
referring
about
to
it from the overthrown names.
which is exactly what they've done to us.
Right.
To keep us in our lower jurisdiction, they have to keep calling us black, colored, or
Negro,
keep calling
African,
us by
whatever.
or keep calling us by our slave property last name.
That way we don't have jurisdiction. And if we don't have jurisdiction, then obviously you're not the sovereign.
Or obviously you've agreed to be a slave.
Or you agreed to be a slave. Right? It's for all the hip hop heads. Just so we can recognize that even the Nation of Gods and Earth's been telling you, right? There's Brother Lakeem Shabazz, Four Righteous Teachers. There he is with his fez on, with a tassel in his face or whatever, on his album cover, showing people what this is about. They're the same people who say, arm, leg, arm, head, and I self-law and master, and call themselves a nation or whatever like that of gods and earth. Why are they a nation for? Because they're Moors. Not only that, don't forget you're gonna go to just Google Nation of Gods and Earth, and their website will come up 120lessons.com, and then on the front page they got Clarence 13X, who's the founder of their stuff. They don't have him in the suit and tie, whatever stuff. They have him in the NOI regalia with the tarbouche or the fez on.
Which is still somewhat of a...
Letting people know.
The NOI is still a sort of...
yeah, it's right? But they know what's up. But not telling. Yeah. Right? Not presenting it like this. Well, we're Moors, that's why we call ourselves a nation and things like that. Right? That's why they do the hand gestures with the two fingers, because somebody taught them that two on the right is something. But if they don't put the 5 on the left, then people would just think this has nothing to do with more science. Even though he has a fez on, even though their logo is a circle with a 7, right? Wow. But it's presented as a star, and all this,
which is the
all
four
this
corners
illusion,
anyway.
and all the four corners, right? All the illusion.
Which is really crazy too, because they've also got the square in there too, the square inside the 7,
right.
Or outside of the 7, which is the foundation, right? The square, the circle, and the triangle, right? So, but you know what I had thought with these guys is that they know that they're not actively being sort of fighting. You understand what I mean, right?
And that's mainly because of the so-called people who are leading right now. The people that become the heads of these things, they have to, they got handlers. when handler says, you guys are black Asiatics and stuff like that. And you're going to say gods and earths and whatever like that. Don't call yourself Moors. Don't even try to connect yourself with Moors, even though, guys have fezzes on with tassels dangling in their face and all that. People are going to try to avoid the fact that
well, that's probably
Asiatics.
That's probably to take a bit of the payoff too, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's to take the payoff, right?
Yeah. Right. We're going to read something, and then we're going to read something else that just happened, so we can let everybody know that Moors have been acknowledged, Moors are acknowledged, people know who the Moors are, and we need to stop playing around with dirty Moors trying to convince us that we need to convince somebody of something as far as who we are, right? So this is 1933, Legislative Journal, House, page 5759, resolution number 75. Mr. Watkin, Mr. Speaker, I desire at this time to call up resolution number 75, printers number 1034. The resolution was read by the clerk as follows. In the House of Representatives, April 17, 1933, many sons and daughters of the proud and handsome race which inspired the architecture of Northern Africa and carried into Spain the influence of its artistic temperaments have become citizens of this nation. In the city of Philadelphia, there exists a Moorish American society made up of Moors who have found here the end of their quest for a home and the children of those who journeyed here from the plains of Morocco. The society has done much to bring about a thorough absorption by these people of those principles which are necessary to make them good American citizens. These Moorish Americans have since been here, missed the use of the titles and name annexations that were so familiar at home and which are used in accordance with the doctrines of the religious faith to which they are adherents. Therefore be it resolved that the House commends the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia for the efficient service it rendered the nation in bringing about a speedy and thorough Americanization of these former Moors, and that in accordance with the fullest right of religious independence guaranteed every citizen, we recognize also the right of these people to use the name affixes El or Ali or Bey or any other prefix or suffix to which they have heretofore been accustomed to use, which they may hereafter acquire the right to use. On the question, will the House adopt this resolution? It was adopted May 4th, 1933. In 1933, they know about Moorish Americans, right? So this just came out last week sometime. We'll put this up there. Islam, Islam, Islam. Hear ye, O Moorish American Muslims. I first rise and give praise to the Almighty God Allah. I extend high honors to His holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I would like to take this moment to express my sincerest and most humble gratitude to all of the Moorish Americans present at this most monumentous and magnanimous event. The MSTA was officially honored by the City Council in the city of Philadelphia, and we are subsequently given the honor of addressing the City Council chamber. The unity demonstration at this event was awe-inspiring. I am not sure we realize the profound impact we collectively had on those lawmakers on this historic occasion. All are too numerous to name. However, I thank you all with sincerity of a child's heart, those who were there in the physical and those who were there in spirit. The Holy Prophet taught us that our strength lies in our collective unity. Consequently, I would like to acknowledge the various members who came together under the leadership of Grand Sheikh R. Jones Bey, Supreme Grand Sheikh David Bailey L., Grand Sheikh Clarence Prather L., the late G.S. Thornhill L., etc. To name a few of these honorable representatives: number 34, Grand Sheikh Walter Clendenin Bey, Temple number 54, Sheikh Curtis Hurt Bey, Temple number 28, Sheikess Wendy Wright Bey, Temple number 11, Sheikh George Benson Bey, Brother Diallo Robinson Bey, temple number 2, Brother Talik L, temple number 11, Sheikh Thomas D, Mahdi L, etc., etc. Please just list your name if I did not list it here. Please forgive me. I give special honors to Sheikh Ronald Hopkins Bey for demonstrating the image and likeness of our beloved father, Brother R. Hopkins Bey, past Grand Sheikh. May Allah be pleased with him through his tireless efforts working in the great program of uplifting fallen humanity. It was through his hard work and labor that made this possible. I love you all. And then there's the Moors in Philadelphia, modern day, right? Acknowledged by so-called, Inquisition, European foreigners or whatever, right? But keep in mind that this is a succession from 1933 recognition. This is the same group of Moors, same temple. This is just the younger generation, the older generation, pass it on, pass it on, pass it on. Now they're accepting on behalf of what was established before them. This is not something new. But people are going to look at this, oh, they recognize the Moors, wow, 2014. No, they've been recognized. It's not anything new. When we realize that the master is self, then we would get the appreciation, acknowledgement, whatever, by the others who are not self. Because they would see that we know who self is, right? For example, before we get these last couple questions, last night, we were talking about this earlier, so we're going to put this one on the record. Last night, went to the studio last night, do some work or whatever like that. Want to get something to eat, go to the samosa shop that we go to. Place didn't have any samosas or whatever, right? So we said, all right, we're just going to go to a store, buy some chips or something, get something. Go to this store, Hindustan store, right? Get the chips, put it on the counter, man, ready to punch it in the computer, put tax. Pull out nationality card, put nationality card down. No tax. Looks at it, it's Hindu, his language, Indian, accent or whatever. Oh no, can't take it or whatever like that. We can't take it. How come? Why can't you take it? Well, are you sure you're a native or whatever? Yeah, like for real, like I'm native. He's looking at the card. Oh, sure you're a native or whatever? Like, yeah, for real. Just like, we started talking to him about, the difference between India and Hindustan and Ceylon and Sri Lanka, and he's like, right now he's, no way this guy knows what the hell we're talking about right now, right? He's like, okay, sure, and he's like leaning over the counter looking at me like, are you really indigenous or whatever? You're really native? I'm like, yeah. They don't tell you about this in the news and on TV, do they? He's like, no, they don't tell me about nothing like that or whatever. Guy said, here's the chips for free. Hindustani. He's not even from here. He's from across the Atlantic. And he recognized that, hold on a second, if you're not supposed to be paying tax, then you're not supposed to be paying for anything either. I had to force him to take the money. So I'm trying to explain to him, well, you have a business, whatever like that. We're brothers. Don't worry. There's no big deal. I'll support you once you take the taxes off, and cancel the thing from the register, and took the $1 or $3 or whatever, right? But was going to give me the stuff free. Like I had to plead with him, take the money. He's like, no, because you're native, I'm not supposed to sell you nothing. Hindustani. So somebody knows something. People know some stuff about this birthright, Aboriginal, indigenous claim that we're making more than we even know. If he was about to give me the stuff for free, just out of the fact that I said I was native, and I proved to him that I was really, really, really the native, not the native that he's been programmed to think is the native, right?
I was wondering about the same output.
Yeah. Gladu, yeah.
Are they, when they put that together, are they on the impression that who's the native or who's it?
No, yeah, well, okay, like if we go back to the beginning part, right? Judges have this duty to all Aboriginal people. Yeah, I'm just about to. Judges have this duty to all Aboriginal peoples of Canada living on or off the reserve, right? Including First Nations, status and non-status Indians, Metis with or without Metis card, and Inuit. It does not matter if you live in a non-Aboriginal community or were adopted or raised or in a foster home. If you're Aboriginal, this applies to you. Like, period. So if you make the claim that you're now, we have to also remember too that in making the claim of this, right, you're admitting that they have jurisdiction, because this deals with the addressing the court about Gladu, right, is with regard to sentencing. If you're at sentencing, you already voided status and jurisdiction.
But also interesting.
The status is the first issue before you even get this far. If you get this far, you already made an error.
Yeah.
If it gets this far. But if it does get this far, here's your little window to throw at them. Oh, you know, Gladu applies because I'm Aboriginal, so, you know, you got to watch how you sentence me. You can't sentence me to whatever you feel like, you know, because I'm Aboriginal.
But I also realize what they've done is they've taken the word Aboriginal and put their energy on it too, right? Because ultimately they're putting Aboriginal into their status.
Right.
When Aboriginal doesn't have what he's saying has, they would not even be involved in talking about that.
Speaking
but
about
they're
it.
all of a sudden, and that's what I realize now too, the unconscious thing about being Aboriginal again. Now, whenever you say that, people visualize that Indian.
That Indian, that straight nose.
So what I'm trying to say to you is we now then, see, that's how their sorcery works, right? Because now if we're claiming to be Indian, first of all, they're looking at you. Wait, are you Indian?
Are you really?
Really Indian?
Yeah.
Because they don't even know what Aboriginal is. Because
Yeah.
they haven't even told you that we were here first. So that's another part of the game. Because then we have a problem admitting to being Aboriginal, because we don't then want to be termed with them, because we're not really them. But then we may want to claim that because, no, but we may want to claim it because it might give us some temporary little benefit, right? So that's a dangerous thing too. We've got, it's almost like we're not the A Aboriginal, we're the B Aboriginal. No, we're not the B Aboriginals, we're the double A Aboriginals, which is the allodial Aboriginals,
right.
which is free of them. The indigenous
free
Aboriginals.
Free of the you know.
Free of anyone.
Anything.
From anyone saying anything to us, except us.
Like we're the actual claimants.
When I actually come down to it, he's going to be the only one to be able to tell me anything. Because in our level of government right now, he would be, let's say, the Grand Sheik. So he would be the only one. Anyone else out there doesn't have any jurisdiction over you.
And then I'm only telling because he gave me jurisdiction on his affairs as more.
And that's only because another group of us all agreed for him to do that, not just me.
Or not me, because, you know, I started it up here, so that means, you know, I'm the one that's giving orders or whatever. Like, I don't give orders. I take them from people who are out here.
So we give them back to him because he's also shown and proven to us that he's been the one who's walking in the right steps. If the instant he doesn't, then he's going to have a problem. It's that checks and balances thing.
Right.
But in the opposite place, what it is you just got some guy, you don't even know who he is. He's just stepped up there because of some little, you know, gone to some certain school. He's following by their certain little clubism, and he's making decisions. But he's not making decisions on his own boys. He's making decisions on us.
Right.
When those guys get together, they're not in front of him in court.
Yeah.
That may look like it. They're not there. They're behind the scenes at the Masonic meetings,
right,
discussing all that shit.
That's where they do their stuff at.
All that stuff is done behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They're never there. You see the mayor? The mayor's running around like a damn criminal, killing people, smoking crack, and they can't get him out of there.
Right. And then they can't get him out of there because they don't really have the authority to, because, you know, it's corporate business. It's not governmental. It has nothing to do with government.
But they dressed it up as government.
It's their little corporate jurisdiction. That if you want to smoke crack, hey. If you want to go drink and drive, hey, you know, do whatever you want. Right? Because remember that you know the so-called police, they're hired by the mayor. He brings them on. He's the one that picks who the police chief's gonna be or whatever.
Not the
Right?
other way around.
The mayor does. So if the mayor says who the police chief is, who's gonna give him tickets for something?
And then what I just came to me right now, what I realized is then you've got this institution called the media, which is tasked with sort of keeping things free and open, but really they're part of the game too. But ultimately, that shit sells papers, and that shit keeps us watching. And then once we're watching, we're programmed.
Which they got, you know, a little 10% or whatever tax on it.
And then it's all, and then what I was having an argument. I was having another argument with brother at work. It's all about the show. It's all the show. What the? You know, we're all sitting around talking about the mayor. Meanwhile, they're out doing shit to us, and we're talking about the mayor. It's not about the mayor, but we're all focused on the mayor. And then they're instituting shit. And that's what you realize.
And then go vote at the end of the month and all that stuff. Who you voting for? Well, I'm gonna vote for this guy because you know, he said in the speech that and then the taxes of those guys are private corporations. They're not implementing nothing what they're talking about. Zero. They're not implementing anything they're talking about. They might implement, you know, a sliver, get people to think, oh yeah, well, you know, I voted for that guy, so I guess he's kind of doing whatever, but.
And then ultimately, all of those people are still sitting around together in the Masonic lodges by themselves.
Right.
So whether it's voting for me or him, it's the same thing. It's just a different color. Right. Today we're going to give you 600. He's going to give you 500. He's going to give you TTC. He's going to give you robust.
Yeah.
But we're all still going to be ripping you off.
It's all the rip off at the same time. Right. There's a couple questions. Right. Yeah. That's literally what it is. That's literally what it is.
That's the same thing with the prosecutor and the defendant. After work, they're out drinking together.
Yeah.
You don't get it. They're friends afterwards. So wait, you're defending me against this guy and you and him are drinking afterwards? That's not the guy you want on your team. Yeah. You want the guy who's on your team to say, I hate that guy. Yeah. And I'm not gonna let him win anything. No, but that's where we miss it. They dress all of this up as if there's differences. You're wearing blue, I'm wearing red. Oh, I like the red guy, so I'm going to vote for the red guy. Oh, the red guy ripped me off, I'm going to vote for the blue guy. Oh, the blue guy ripped me off, I'm going to vote for the green guy. They're all the same guys.
All the same, right? It's just like we knew, you know, people who were involved with like big stuff, right? And when they go to court or whatever like that, right? Lawyer comes in, you know, with the suit and whatever like that, shows his little bam, 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 stuff like that. Bam, this guy gets off his, you know, he had some whatever stuff in the trunk or whatever. Got off his stuff, right? He's getting invited by the lawyer. Oh yeah, you know, come to a party, whatever like that. After, you know, case gets beat. And this is drug dealer guy. Drug dealer guys in the lawyer party, whatever, and those guys have the lines on the table or whatever. They got the little room back there that, you know, you see everybody going back there with their little concubine or whatever, you know. This is lawyers, judges in this party, police head of whatever, superintendent, whatever at this party. All office, so-called officers that arrested him for stuff is at the party sniffing coke and stuff like that.
You know this?
And yeah. And then they're in the court next, you know, Monday or whatever, talking about, yeah, they're bringing somebody and book him and all that type of stuff. Those guys were at a party sniffing coke. Right? Judge is coming up there, he's a cokehead. Judge is buying coke from the drug guy at the party. Right? And then we're going to say these people, government, go vote for somebody? What? And then want to know why, you know, Rob Ford's crackhead and all that stuff? Cause that's protocol. That's something that's what they do. It's nothing new. That's how they get down. You know what I mean? That's how they get down. Brother Zachary L. Bay sent 3 questions. One question: who and where is the lawfully ordained head major grand body temple? Okay. So as far as the successorship of the Moor Science Temple is concerned, anybody that's tied to Grand Sheikh Edward Mealy Ill is the successor after the prophet. Anybody else is a fraud, basically, right? So if they're not, so the lineage right now ended at Supreme Grand Sheik Bailey Elf, right? And the as far as aware, that's in Chicago. So that's really the successorship, right? Anybody else claiming to be successor and isn't in that line that's ending with that individual is technically running a fraud. Edward Bailey L. Or sorry, David Bailey L. And Edward Mealy Ill is who got the successorship after Noble Drew Ali. Mealy, Mealy. Mealy L. And then you can Google David Bailey L. And he has some stuff on YouTube that'll come up. Some good little classes. Just talking about the historical perspective of the temple and how come everything got scattered and all this type of stuff. The second question is, what is the proper protocol for forming an MSTA MHTS? That one there is, as far as the protocol for starting up something, you should have a warrant of authority given to you by competent body of the Moorish Science Temple, Moorish Holy Temple of Science. As far as um, um, setting up under the right body of Moors and all that, it's touchy right now because it's 2014 and Moors, even Moors that were legit, haven't done what they're really supposed to do with this in the time that they had it. So, to wait for somebody to do something, like Moors say, well, I don't even have a temple where I live, right? There's no more science temple where I am. How can we get a temple here? Well, you should be going to the heads of whoever claimed to be Grand Major Temple and asking them that. How come there's no stuff there? Because they were the ones that were supposed to make sure that there's subordinate temples in every state. And if they didn't do that because of infighting, bickering, whatever like that, then, some people need to either get out the seat that they're in or start doing things that they weren't doing ASAP. Like immediately start doing things that they weren't doing in order to counteract everything that, civil forfeiture and all this type of stuff is happening because people were supposed to take their property, put it in the name of the temple or the prophet, so they don't lose it. When 1933 came and bankruptcy crashed and all that. But they didn't do that because, prophet died and then all these people playing that they're the prophet, reincarnated prophet, come over here, don't go to those guys are whatever, these guys are, when Noble Drew Ali already set something in order. And Moors took it on themselves not to let people follow the order of what was laid down. So we're here with his third question, what can be done for the so-called separation of the MSTA? Well, there's no separation of the MSTA. Because the MSTA is what it is and Allah guides that. The Moorish movement is what it is and Allah guides that. So to say that there's separation in the MSTA means that, one, you're either riding the fence, right? Or two, you're sidelining. Because active Moors know that there's no, if I can get calls from all over the world, right, for people wanting to find out about Moors because, they recognize that there's Moors everywhere. So I should be able to Google Moors and there should be lists of Moors that just come up. That somebody should have a number, I should be able to call them and say, yeah, how you doing? I'm in wherever, you know what I mean? I seen your whatever, website, YouTube, etc. I just want some information. And then that Moor is supposed to be like, hey, Islam, you're in wherever, I will send you some stuff. Period. And leave those people alone to go do what they got to do. So the separation comes from people who aren't looking at this as theirs. They're looking at it as somebody's putting them on, which one's the best, is there a real and a fake one? Well, it's about the information. Don't worry about who's real, who's fake. Go get the info that you're supposed to get that you don't have. And you will know immediately that it's the right information or wrong information, because our spirit's gonna let us know that it's no good. Our spirit's gonna tell us that don't go with that, right? Not our mind or whatever like that. Spirit's gonna let us know, right? So hope those got answered. And then the last question was Brother Latif Bey. Can you break down in better detail the difference between blanket umbrella bond and personal security bond of so-called public officials, so that we can understand the fraud that individuals are committing more clearly? The idea of a blanket bond is kin to going camping and having your own sleeping bag, opposed to everybody in the one tent trying to cover with a blanket, right? Personal security bond is you have your own bond because you're a member of whatever, bond number 555. You have your own bond because you're a member of whatever, 666. You have your own bond at 777. You have your own bond 888. Blanket bond is we have one bond right here, 00000, and we're gonna cover all you guys with it, which can't really be done because if you're talking about somebody being bonded, it has to be individual. You can't have blanket bonds. So that's where the fraud comes in. That as soon as they say blanket bond, automatically, or as soon as they don't want to give the bond information, you know that they're clearly running a fraud, because that should be something that you're willing to give. Because a bond is insurance. So, I mean, why wouldn't you admit that you're insured to carry that, whatever you got, spray, baton, whatever? You should have something to say that you're protected, not because, the law or whatever like that, but if I take that stuff off you and deal with you with it, you're responsible for that. If they come up here try to abuse power and we surround this one guy and we disarm him of all his stuff that he has, that he said that, I'm the officer or whatever, and we disarm him, he has no power no more. But also he has no protection if we go out there and we go, hold up all the other guys who got, stuff, we put on the suit, badge, and we start pulling over officers, claim they're officers. Oh, we need to get out the car right now. Yeah, who are you? Oh, don't worry, here's my stuff or whatever like that. Here's my stuff, here's my spray or whatever that I could use on you, just like you guys use on me. Get the hell out the car. Right? They're going to trace back that weapon, baton, spray or whatever to whoever it belonged to. And they're going to ask him, yeah, we had a case, with these guys that got held up by some people that were wearing, but it was your gun that they used. It was your spray that they used, and it was your whatever. And then those people are going to start realizing that this thing that they have called ultra-virus statute, where because they have a job with the government, they're protected as government, whatever. Well, you guys aren't no government, nothing. It's private, corporate security guards pretending like they have some type of governmental authority, but they don't have any bond, or they have a blanket bond, and try to pretend like, yeah, they got authority when they're not even bonded. A goddamn collection agent has to be bonded, and he doesn't even have any weapons or nothing like that, and he has to be bonded. Why? Because you're dealing with people's finance. You're dealing with, you owe 50 million. I can't pay. Go ask your mom. Go ask your grandma or somebody. Get the money. I don't care. Right? You need to be bonded to talk to people like that. You need to be bonded to tell people go cash in. Yeah, you go cash in your house or whatever like that. Go get a second mortgage to pay this debt. And then they go get the second mortgage, pay the debt, and then 5 years later, they realize that the debt wasn't legit. that place better be bonded to give back that person their mortgage money, or they're up the river. Just for not being bonded, not for the fact that they took the money. They took the money and all that stuff is a separate issue that they're going to have to deal with. The fact that they weren't bonded and did that, they're going to be more trouble for that by their own, superiors or whatever like that. You know what I mean? So, hope that clears that up. And going on 7, so that's probably about it. If anybody got any questions or any comments, everybody's good. All right. So Islam to all the Moors. We had well, between 11 and 13 or something like that online, back and forth today. So Islam to all you Moors, Islam to all the active Moors. We'll just close out with the prayer. Don't forget willofallah.com. Get the new Iron Sheik album, Iron Sheik 5. It's available. It's out. It's online for you. If you don't have that, send an email to canaanlandguide@gmail.com with your address, and we'll send it out that way. I had some fraudulent mail stuff. I'm already dealing with all these different names of stuff coming here. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah the Father of the universe, Allah the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night, and by day, through His holy prophet, noble through Ali. Islam, peace, and hotel. Islam, Moors.